You got to do an audit of your business first and foremost. And you can pay for those services. We certainly do those services on behalf of our clients, but one of the best ways is start doing Google searches on your own business, whether it's by your business name. You'd be shocked about the amount of times you maybe do a search for your business name and lo and behold, your business doesn't come up. That's a big problem, by the way. So either, do that, search for keywords that you want to rank for, like really get a good assessment of how your business ranks online, because it is incredibly important.
You found your way to the Winning Tactics podcast with host Adam Sinkus. Adam discusses winning tactics with small business owners and entrepreneurs, uncovering processes and introducing the tools and solutions for enhancing the bottom line. Thanks again for finding your way to the Winning Tactics podcast. And now your host, Adam Sinkus.
What is going on, everybody? Happy Tuesday, and arguably maybe my favorite day of the week because it is Winning Tactics Podcast Day. I'm excited today because I get to nerd out in a space that I absolutely love. I teased it a little bit on LinkedIn this morning and Facebook, but we are talking about digital marketing. It's such a dynamic space right now. Everything is changing a lot and all the time. And, what worked back in the day, I remember back in the day, like you literally could put a web page up and all of a sudden, like, poof, you were on the internet, and easy to find. And, and everybody knew where you were. And oh my gosh, if you had a web page, you were like the bee's knees. Well, yep, Google and a bazillion web pages later has fixed that from being the case anymore. So first and foremost, welcome my guest to the show, Laura Cole. Welcome to the show. Just so glad to have you on the show because I don't get to nerd out about marketing too terribly often. So tell us a little bit about who you are and what you do.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much for having me today, Adam. I'm super excited to nerd out as well. So my name is Laura Cole, and I am the VP of Marketing for Vivial. Vivial is a digital marketing agency. We work with tens of thousands of local businesses all across the United States in all things digital marketing. So the whole world of online, mobile, social, you name it, we do it.
Fantastic. And, it's an interesting space right now. There's a lot going on for those of you that aren't in the world. iOS came down with all kinds of new regulations on how their software is being used, which is impacting social media and third-party advertisers, which is like really, really big in the marketing world. I think, if you're not in the marketing world, you wouldn't understand necessarily how much of an impact that could be, but we're going to definitely go there today, I think. But to get there, let's first kind of tease a little bit about what's going on in the SEO world. First of all, what is SEO? Because I think there's a lot of people that still wonder kind of what SEO really is.
Yeah, sure. So SEO stands for, we tend to have a lot of acronyms in this space. So there's always an acronym for something. So this one stands for search engine optimization. And so this is the way that you get your business's website to rank in the organic section of Google. So that non-paid placement, non-sponsored section. This is where there's a lot of SEO tactics. We probably could spend our entire time today talking about all the things that you can do to rank organically, but it is essentially, we refer to it as that earned placement on Google.
Yeah, it's the elusive chase, right? I laugh and I cry a little bit all at the same time because you start talking to somebody about their digital assets and the first thing they want to be is number one on Google.
Every time.
Every time.
Well, and I loved how you set it up too, when you said, right, like gone are the days that you could just kind of build a website, put it out there, and it's like you build it, they come. That is not what it is anymore. And unfortunately, Google does not publish a manual to say, hey, everybody, here's how to get your business to rank online, right? So a lot of things that you can do, but it takes constant learning, it's constant testing. I would love to sit here also and tell everybody that, well, once you do these 5 things, that'll happen and you can just put it away and it's all good. No, because then the algorithm changes and you got to do something different. So it's this constant evolution of really, trying to keep up with the latest things to rank, which can prove incredibly challenging for local business owners. Yeah.
Oh yeah, gosh. I mean, I look at the amount of time I spend just in in the research space, right? Not even doing anything, just in the research space alone for my clients, and it's like, oh my gosh, like I couldn't imagine if you had a roofing business or a doctor's office or a retail store that you had to run and spend all that time, doing the research.
For sure. Yeah, it's crazy. And I think that, actually what you describe is actually where we tell the business owners that we work with to start. Like, you got to do an audit of your business first and foremost. And you can pay for those services. And we certainly do those services on behalf of our clients. But one of the best ways is start doing Google searches on your own business, whether it's by your business name. You'd be shocked about the amount of times you maybe do a search for your business name and lo and behold, your business doesn't come up. That's a big problem, by the way. So either, do that, search for keywords that you want to rank for, like really get a good assessment of how your business ranks online, because it is incredibly important.
Well, you said something that's interesting to me, because I always laugh about this one as well. As people are like, well, yeah, I search my business name and I show up on number 1, but I can't understand why I don't get any traffic. I'm like, well, are your clients searching for your business name, or are your clients searching for something else?
Very good point. Yes. That's a common one, because we hear that also. It's like, well, they searched for my business name and they found me, so all good. And it's like, well, no, because you think about we always talk about, the path to purchase, and consumers go about it in such a variety of ways, right? Like, I mean, what used to be like, okay, I need to get a print ad, I need to have a commercial and maybe a billboard. There's now, dozens and dozens and dozens of ways to find a ready to buy consumer. So you kind of have to think about that path to purchase for your own business and what that looks like, so you can kind of meet them as they're in that, buying stage funnel, as we call it.
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because I see this meme go around all the time in the marketing world, especially. It goes, a marketer walks into a bars, drink establishment, restaurant. It's like all the keywords associated with that, and I think oftentimes you can get lost in where to go with what keywords should I be worried about. So let's talk a little bit about that. How do you start developing a keyword strategy?
That's a great question. It's funny. I was just going through this exercise with a colleague today, and we were trying to think through, like, okay, let's put ourselves in the shoes of their consumers. What would they be searching for, right? Like, exactly to your point, is it plural? Is it near me? Is it local? Like, what is it? And I think that the best place to start is utilization of a tool. If you have access, there's lots of tools out there that'll show you what keyword volumes look like. So get an assessment of the types of keywords and the assessment. Google has planning tools. There's like SEMrush. There's a lot of tools that you can use to understand what people are searching for and where the most keyword volume is coming from. Now, where the most keyword traffic volume is coming from may not be what you want to go after, because that might mean it's really competitive, right? So it might make sense. We always kind of recommend, like, look at it listed in its entirety. And yes, you definitely want to start, chipping away at those competitive keywords, but where can you make a land grab, right? Is there some keyword activity that's happening that it would be like, yeah, we can really do, build some content, go after this and really make, a decent move on it. So it's a little bit, again, I always use the word a lot, testing. There's a lot of testing in this place. You got to test, you got to dip your toe in, try some things, don't be afraid to fail, and just keep testing.
Yeah. I love the keyword thing because, like, obviously it's something I use all the time, but yeah, on the same token, challenge of keywords is like really something that's important to consider when you're looking at keywords. trying to challenge Google for their keywords is, or a keyword that has, 10 million search volume, but you look at the top ranking sites and the first 60 of them are Amazon. You're like, well, probably not worth chasing that. Right. But on the same token, I think you also have to worry about the other side of that equation too, right? The ones that are getting too little volume to even be worth it and spend the time on. What are your thoughts on where do you apply a bottom threshold to keyword volume?
I love the description that you were just giving, and I'd love to give like a black or white, like, yes, we have this threshold, but the reality is depending on the type of business, it does depend. But what you were just describing is exactly the type of thinking that you need to go through, because it's a waste of money. Like the Amazon example that you gave, that would be wasted dollars for a client to go after and try to compete with that type of activity. However, it's also wasted dollars to go after a keyword that is so obscure, ultimately isn't going to convert to a lead, right? So we try to find that balance where we're able to find what's kind of referred to sometimes as like those longer tail keywords, right? Because also what happens is the more specific the consumer is getting and potentially the query, the more close to buying they likely are, right? Like we sometimes use like the car example, right? Like when you first start searching for a car, you're like, used cars near me, right? This is broad. Like, am I looking for an SUV, a convertible? What am I looking for? But then you start narrowing that search, and maybe I'm looking for, used SUVs near me. Then maybe I'm zeroing in on, I want a Chevrolet Suburban 2015 or newer, right? That you're zeroing in. So, that's sometimes an easy one for people to grasp in terms of the example, because most people have been through the car buying experience before. It's not fun. But most people have been through it. So you can kind of think about like how you start to drill down and start to think about like, what you're actually closer to buying, so to speak.
Yeah. I love that, as you get more specific, 100%, it is all about you're starting to make an educated buying decision at that point. The other thing that's interesting, a lot of people don't really equate to keywords, right? Because we think keyword is one single word, right? Is these long tail keywords, which are becoming more and more important in the search space. So what is a long tail keyword and why is it important?
Great question. So a long tail keyword is that allows for more specificity in the search, right? So plumbers, let's use that example, right? That's another one that's usually well known. So plumbers near me, that's pretty broad, right? Like, am I looking for a repair? Am I looking for a new build? Like, what am I looking for? Versus if you start to get into, plumbing, repair, 24-hour service near me. Okay. That's somebody that's looking, they're ready to buy, right? Or plumbing supply estimates, right? Like getting in more words is essentially longer tail, more specificity. I think the other kind of notion that you just brought up, which you have to pay attention to this, which is, back in the day, I speak like I'm old, but back in the day, long tail keywords were that rigid, like what I just described, right? Like plumbing, supply, 24 hours, right? Like individual kind of phrases just put together. Well, voice search and the way that we're all used to searching now, and we've all experienced it, even when we're not using our voice anymore, when we go to type on Google, we're like speaking to a friend, right? We're like, find me a restaurant that has Italian food, right? It's like more phrasing and more like questions, right? Questions and answers. So another like tip that we give a lot of the businesses that we work with is to think about the types of questions that people are asking about your business, because they're going to be typing them into Google. They just are. So you need to be, thinking about what are those answers so that you can more readily provide those answers to people that are searching.
Yeah. What's the search world is getting like challenging now.
That's an understatement.
And I think, keywords is a huge part of that, but there's other things that play into that space right now. One of the things we do a lot of times with our clients is directory listings, right? And getting listed in all the right places. It sounds like you guys do much in the same exercise with your clients as well.
For sure.
Let's talk a little bit about directory listings, because there's the big directories that we all know, things like Google and Bing and the social media spaces, but there is also a lot of smaller directories out there as well that are just as important. So let's start with the big directories. Where, in your mind, where should businesses, no questions asked, always be listed?
Yeah, you named most of them, right? GMB, Google My Business, without question. I'm still amazed at how many businesses we run into that have not properly claimed and nor optimized their GMB profile. That is like step one. If you're listening to this and you've not done that, that's your homework for tonight. Go do it, right? So GMB without question, Facebook, all the major social all the major social profiles, make sure that those are claimed, optimized as they should be. Instagram, right? Everything. Bing, as you mentioned, those are the ones that really stick out. Yelp, of course, sticks out, the big guys. But as you kind of alluded to, it's not just there, right? Because we know that Google itself looks to other directory sites for that kind of trust check, right? Like, do you have consistent information across all of these directories? So it's really important. We're a big fan. You certainly, as a business owner, can take the time to individually go claim and optimize and update, the 100+ directories at your leisure, because we know you have so much time. But I'm joking, of course. Like, you should get linked into a platform that does that for you. There are lots of them out there. We have a platform that we utilize to do that. You want a one-stop shop, because it's hard to keep up with that. Heck, it's hard just to keep up with GMB alone. I mean, that can be challenging to ensure that you're answering reviews and posting photos and all of the things, because it's not, again, like we said, it's just not set it and forget it again. Like, yes, claiming it as part of it, but that keyword of optimization is so important for you to, manage on an ongoing basis.
Yeah, I love that. I almost treat my GMB profile like another social platform.
Yeah. It's funny. We sometimes talk about that when we're talking about GMB, is like, we'll like confuse ourselves, and we put it in the social bucket too, because you think about there's similar things, the posting aspect, the posting photos, responding to reviews, a lot of the things that you're doing on social media. So it's funny. We joke about that as well.
So let's jump. Well, let's pause for a moment. I want to pause for a moment because I want to thank my affiliate partner, Cowork Hub Virtual, giving consultants, coaches, freelancers, and solopreneurs a sense of place in a remote work world. This is a super, super cool platform. It is everything that you could possibly imagine of a physical co-working space, just put all online. So you can sit at your favorite Starbucks or heck, the beach at Maui, and still have those same kind of feel like you're in the office. You can go visit with people in the office. You get a custom background. You mentioned that you saw it on the Winning Tactics, and they'll hook you up with a free branded background with your logo or logos. So you can totally rep your brand as you're in those online meetings. Check them out, coworkhubvirtual.com. And let them know that you found them on the Winning Tactics. Back to the important stuff, though. Well, it's all important, right?
It's all important.
It's all important. But, I want to jump into social a little bit, because I think there's a lot of, I know there's a lot of misinformation about how we should treat social and approach social. And one of the big ones that I hear a lot is, the Gary V mindset of be everywhere a bazillion times a day, 1,000 posts a day type thing on every single platform. And well, the reality is we're business owners and we don't have time for that. So what are your thoughts on that kind of be everywhere all the time mentality in the small business world?
I think it's impossible for most businesses to do that, right? The word that we use probably the most when we're talking through social and this discussion is the word authentic, right? So I think we talk a lot to the businesses that we work with about being really authentic to your brand and what's important to you. So for most businesses, it doesn't make sense to be on 6 different social platforms, posting 3 times a day. And frankly, that is overkill, right? There's a threshold, and it varies, right? It varies by industry. It varies on if you're a local based business versus doing regional or nationwide stuff. But there is a threshold of what is authentic. The other thing that I think ties in with this authenticity thread is, don't constantly be selling, right? We constantly coach the businesses that we work with. Like, social is a very engaging platform. They're meant to be engaging platforms, right? But that's not just, hey, I'm trying to engage with you to sell you something or to promote myself. That could be engaging with like community events or local sponsorships, or just, engaging with the audience that's participating. So we are definitely not fans of you have to be everywhere and you have to be posting, 3-5 times a day. Like that just doesn't make sense. So biggest tip I would give is, again, think about your consumers, your audience. Where are they most likely frequenting, right? Like if you're a B2B, you need to be on LinkedIn, right? If you're not on LinkedIn as a B2B provider, you're missing out. If you're a very visual, I always think about like florists, photographers, right? You've got to be on Instagram, potentially even Pinterest, depending on what. But so think about your business and where your audience is. Just given the sheer size and scope, Facebook is typically part of what we take forward, because it's just you got a large base, right? Obviously that's on Facebook.
Yeah, Facebook is always interesting to me because it's a love-hate relationship. Everybody gets fed up and so frustrated with the casual manner from a business sense on the Facebook world, but the fact is that people are leaving work and coming home, and these are business professionals that are hopping on Facebook to relax, and so it's a great opportunity for visibility in my mind. And so as much as I hate being there, I realize that it's a good opportunity. So you have to be there. I think my strategy is always start with like 2 to 3 platforms. Pick 2 to 3 platforms. Be an expert at them. I find like platforms like Twitter are very, very hard for business owners to be successful on unless you have somebody managing it. But like Instagram is a nice third, because regardless of your business, because you can post straight from Facebook with it. So
that
insider knowledge there.
The integration of the two. And if you're going to get into the ad game, right, also you can do ads between both and optimize platforms between both, which is a nice added as well. I agree on your thoughts on Twitter. I mean, we have some clients definitely that we work with that the strategy works well and it's a good platform, high usage, but for most business owners, that's a very complex one to manage on your own. It's just, it can become kind of all consuming.
Yeah, we have a great question from the audience today. So Todd asks, how do you position social's role in a program versus more lead generation focused tactics? So
good question, because, as we hear about, like, social sometimes gets a bad rap because, again, I'll talk a little bit about the funnel, right? And the path to purchase. Socials can sometimes be one of those softer applications that you're doing. So like when you're managing something like a Google paid campaign, right? Like it's very direct. Like I paid this much, I got form fills, I got calls, and it converted. And social has a much broader role in the program, right? So social can definitely be lead gen. I mean, last I checked, Facebook alone has, how many advertising types? Dozens and dozens of ad campaigns that you can run, right? Some of those can be lead gen focused. So you definitely can focus on that side. But you also can get things like engagement campaigns, boosted content, which takes, important content of yours and boosts it to a higher audience. You can do page like campaigns. If you're a new business and you need to get people to know you, there's brand awareness campaigns. So there is a lot broader reach in a social program, which is honestly one of its best things, but it also can prove the most challenging because a lot of business owners, and I always understand this, right? Very lead driven, very much like how many leads came through the door today. But again, we talk about like kind of, drilling down. That's not how most consumers shop. Most consumers, they hear about a business, they start doing research, maybe they start seeing ads, maybe they check out your reviews and get some referrals, right? That sort of thing. as you think about social can really help on all of those touch points. So it's a real powerhouse in the advertising space that you're doing.
Yeah, I love your sentiments there. It is something that you should be coordinating with the rest of your sales and lead generation tools. But the one thing I always caution people with in the social world is being too forceful, being too cold call like in the social world, because that will totally get you shut down. People just don't want to be sold, pitched, whatever you want to call it, in the social spaces. I know, like my LinkedIn profile, I get probably 10 to 12 pitches a day, and most of them are poorly sought out, poorly researched, and most of them happen within the first 10 minutes of somebody trying to connect with me. So, you have to be cautious of that. I was reading an article the other day about this, that social media is the new cold calling standard, and it was basically just reframing how a lot of people are using social media to cold call instead of actually getting on the phone now. But it's a dangerous sword. The numbers game says 30,000, you hit 30,000 people with that message. You might get 3,000 that'll click on it. You might get 300 that are interested, to get maybe 3 to 10 that will actually take you up on that. In the meantime, you've just alienated 2,900 people or 29,000 people.
So funny story. I was actually just a couple of weeks ago, I was catching up with a colleague. He's a longtime sales leader. So he's done sales probably his entire career. And he was sharing with me a similar story that, he got approached on LinkedIn, as we all do. And it was just poorly done. Like the individual that reached out didn't know anything really about him. It was very cold. And he actually took the time. I love this story because, as like a sales veteran, he was like, I feel like obligated to share with him. So he actually responded to the guy and he was like, give me 10 minutes. And he got the guy on the phone and he said, I'm going to give you free advice. You did that all wrong. Like, if this is all you're doing every day, you should have investigated my company. You should have came forward with a pain point that we're experiencing, all those things. And he said the guy like legitimately is like, oh my God, I really appreciate this. This is like my first job out of college. I didn't know. And I really appreciate you taking the time. And then I think tried to sell him and it was like a hard no anyway. But he took the time, he took the time to like say, like, if this is all you're doing all day, you're right. I go back to like that keyword that I use, right? Authentic. Like you got to be authentic on social. Otherwise it's painfully obvious when you're not. And it just appears fake, right? And phony. And it's exhausting for all of us when we get the messages like that.
Yeah, that leads into another interesting part of this conversation: automation in the social world, because it's becoming more and more. But I think the platforms are starting to figure out how terrible it is for the platform itself and starting to shut it down. LinkedIn just recently made some big changes to the way you connect with people, how many people you can connect with, even on their paid tiers, as a result of it. What's your take on automation? Good, bad?
Well,
gray area?
as probably with most things in this space, it's probably gray area, right? I mean, typically when I hear automation, I think that's a really good thing, right? You need some level of automation to really be able to do the things that you need to do within social media. However, as we know that, I think for good reason, right? Many of the platforms are starting to crack down on what you're able to do. As you mentioned, LinkedIn, many times you can't even start running true ad campaigns until you've nurtured or seasoned the base enough that it is, people that actually want to see the message, right? This notion of kind of permission based, right? All the platforms are trying, and I think authentically so, to overuse the word, all the platforms are trying to create a good consumer experience, because at the heart of it, if a consumer is constantly turned off by a platform because they're getting too many ads, they're getting hit with things that are of no interest to them, things of that nature, they will leave the platform, which is obviously ultimately harmful to both the platform as well as to you, the business owner. So I think it's always this like teeter-totter, right? Of like trying to implement things, but to not like get the balance off, right? So just keeping that balance of consumer experience, exposure for the brands to the consumers that want to be exposed to it, and these platforms trying to implement the right things to keep things in check, which is I think what we're seeing a lot of.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of posting tools. I think posting tools are really, really powerful. They're from a time use perspective, right?
Yeah.
Because like a lot of times I'll write pretty much my entire month's social content in
Yeah.
like one sitting on a Sunday afternoon. I'll just, sit down and hammer it all out and, put together 15, 20 posts that are set up for the different platforms. And then I go and schedule them all. And then
Yeah.
all I have to worry about is engagement at that point, because it's all coming full circle. That is, in my opinion, that is really, really good automation tools in that respect.
Completely agree.
Some of
Yeah.
these AI sales tools, pitching tools, and things like that, that's where I think it gets a little convoluted.
I agree. And I totally agree. We're on those posting tools to be able to kind of sit down and do it in one sitting really allows you to put structure around your messaging and structure around the cadence of posting and when you're posting and the types of things. I think it's also really easy for as a business owner for you to maintain the balance, making sure that you're getting a good variety versus if you kind of are just posting on a whim. I think you'll see that you're going to find that you focus a lot on one topic, or you always post at 5:00, right? Which maybe you're not seeing the audience that you should. So definitely agree. Those posting tools are a great, great way to really kind of, I sometimes liken it to like the 80-20 rule, right? Like 80% plan. There's always room for that sort of real-time posting as events may need. But yeah, I think a good, like well-structured content plan is always a great idea.
So let's tie this a little bit back into where we started with web pages, because posting your quips and your thoughts on social media is great, but at a certain point you need to drive your audience somewhere so that they can start to make a buying decision with your company, or a decision to at least start looking into it. So thinking about from the website to social and then back, how do you optimize that journey so that people get to the right place?
That's a great question. And of course, there's many different ways to get there. So I'd start first on, let's just foundational elements on the website. First, make sure you have one. I'm, again, kind of like the GMB page. I'm always shocked, like the people that don't have a website, or the people that have a website and it's like from like 2005. It's not mobile optimized. There's not up-to-date content, right? So just as we said, to kind of do a check of an audit of how your online presence is, a big piece of that is your website. So you really need to ensure there, again, lots of tools you can use to check, like mobile speed optimization, things of that nature. Definitely recommend doing that, because you want to make sure that when somebody gets on your website, you keep them there, right? Because that is the holy grail, getting them there. But you got to make sure that you provide them with enough information that they then don't, leave and go end up shopping and going somewhere else. So I definitely think another kind of trick, as you said, how do you get them from social to the website? We're big on landing page or conversion page experience, right? So I always talk about, like, build your website for the everyday use, whether that's a 5, 10, 20 page full custom site, whatever it might be. But then don't be afraid, and you should use landing pages for the various types of ads that you're running elsewhere, right? So if somebody is coming to your website after clicking from a Facebook ad that is talking about a weekly special, well, they should be landing on a page that is about that weekly special, right? Like, that makes sense, because if they land on your homepage and they're kind of like, well, where'd this special go? They're going to leave, right? So always think about the call to action, or the CTA, that's within the ad or whatever you're promoting, whether it be social, whether it be an ad that you're running, and definitely think about, what is it that you want them to do when you get to your website? Do you want them to call? Should they do a form fill? Is there a downloadable that you have that you have maybe that then you capture the email address so that then you're able to send them information? So again, you have to think a little bit further than just the ad and what the intent is. It's like, what do you want them to do when they get on your website?
Yeah, I love that. I love the what do you want them to do when they get on your website. I've been doing a lot of research on this to optimize CTAs on blogs in a better space, because it's interesting how many blogs just end and
Yes.
send you anywhere else, right? And like one of the things I've learned about it is that a lot of times sending blogs straight to a sales page will lower your conversion rates. So because you haven't really provided them much information at all. You've provided them a simple, short, focused blog. And so I've been playing around with what pages on my sites do I push people to from a blog to effectively drive more conversions and drive better conversations. And I think the same thing happens in the social space too, right? How can you create that journey for them where they could go from a social post that links to a blog, which becomes your pointed landing page, to somewhere else on your site to be engaged as well. So
yeah. We actually had this experience for our own company because, of course, as a company, right, Vivial, we do marketing on our own behalf, and we have many downloadables on our site that a business can run to check the health of their directory listings, their GMB profile, all these various things. And, anytime somebody interacts on your site and you get their information, you want to make sure that you reach out to see if so many times what would happen is they'd download it, and then we would have a sales rep follow up to just say, hey, can we help you with anything? Can we, any information we can provide, et cetera. And, those were converting very low rates, essentially. But what you just described is actually what we implemented, which we don't have a salesperson call somebody immediately. We actually start sending them emails about the effectiveness of directory listings and why you should care, and testimonials about what happens when you do it. Again, thinking about, they're really just seeking information, and sometimes they need more information, right? They need to understand even more things. So, many times, like, people think about like a lead coming in as like, my sales rep can call, or I can immediately add, I'm going to get something out of this immediately. We actually see more effectiveness when you think about it more broadly and actually insert more touch points to, educate, deliver more information. It's just a very effective tool in marketing.
It's interesting, right? You mentioned that, like, kind of that warm up process, because that's essentially what it is, right?
Yeah.
From this perspective. I look at my own journey on like LinkedIn. I started really getting active on LinkedIn late 2019, but I didn't really know what I was doing. By mid 2020, I finally had like hammered down like a really good strategy on LinkedIn. And now, full circle, almost a year later, all of the fruits of all the hard work that I put in then and warming people up and focusing on relationships is like, it just comes full circle and has become, a really good lead channel for me. Just because I focus not on this hard sale all the time, right?
Yeah.
But because I continue to bring value and provide resource and, be a knowledge center within my network. And that's a big piece of what your marketing as a company does. It becomes a resource, a knowledge center, a part of the community that provides value, so you can have those people that know, like, and trust you.
Yeah. And it is like, honestly, what you just described on LinkedIn, I think, is such a great testimonial for marketing, right? As you were talking through that, I sit there and I'm like, okay, you started like mid 2020, like, or not, we're like mid 2021, right? So you're talking like a year later. And I think that one of the things also that I unfortunately see a lot is, and I get it, right? As a business owner, you're looking for kind of like immediate results. Like, I want to implement something, and by God, within, 2 weeks, I want to see results. And it's not like that, or it can be, but most of the things are not. And far too often I see, that we'll be like a month or two into the campaign and like, you starting to like progress and starting to see, and the business owner is like, no, it's not immediate. I'm not up to, the high number of leads that they want. And it's like, no, you got to understand that, like, it is this journey. And I think that if you can effectively, implement the right tactics, I certainly am not recommending, throwing money out the door, but if you can, partner with an agency or feel very comfortable in your own skill sets for digital marketing, it is kind of like this, it's a marathon, not a sprint. That's right. It's definitely a marathon.
Yes, this instant gratification. We talk about this a lot because I work in the trades industry with a lot of the trades industry, right? And they're, obviously like Angie's List and House and a
Yeah.
few of those other major lead gen sources are like their number one go to for leads so often. But it's like, it's funny when you start talking about, well, it's going to be 30 days, 60 days, 90 days before we start to really see this thing take off. That's the reality of how marketing works. But the difference, and this is what I always have to explain to them, the difference is once we get this going, yes, we're going to have to continue to work on it. But unlike when you buy leads, if you stop buying leads will stop coming in. If
Right.
you slowly work on your webpage, even if we stop for a month or two, leads will still come in.
Right.
It'll still happen because
Yeah.
you've built you've built a system that filters people in at that point. And it's it's always fun to challenge the lead gen versus the long-term strategy.
Yeah. Both serve a role, right? Like
Oh, of course, yeah.
they are both important. I mean, that's probably one of the top questions that we get all the time is like, which one? And that usually then is followed by a bunch of questions, right? Well, what are your goals? What's the time frame? What budget do you have, right? Because we also are big fans. Like, I mean, if you have a limited budget, if you know very, very certainly that your funds are finite and smaller, don't try to do everything all at once, because you'll spread
Yep.
your budget so thin that kind of nothing will be effective, right? You're going to dabble in a little bit of stuff here and there, and it may not be successful. So I always think it's important to like really do a good, a good check of like, what is your budget? What do you have budget for? And then decide how much you're really able to do effectively. Because you want to make sure that when you invest dollars, you're doing it in an effective way. And if you spread, if you take I'm making a number up, if you take $1,000 and try to spread it across 5 different channels and, different audiences, it's not going to be effective. So you're going to be upset with the results. And that's when you kind of see business owners throw their hands and say, well, it doesn't work. Well, it depends, because maybe if you would have taken $1,000 and just did a Google campaign or just did an ad on LinkedIn, if you're B2B, it may have been very highly effective. So really, do a good trust check of what your budget is.
Yeah, I love that trust check of the budget. And to take that a step further, thinking about, do I need short-term wins right now to do long-term stuff in the future versus can I afford to do long-term stuff now, knowing it may be a month or two before I see a whole lot of value from it as well. So I think that's an important consideration to make. I'm definitely by no means slamming the lead gen space, because there's a time and place for it. And it's all part of your marketing. The best companies have, many different tactics that they use all the time in different ways in different spaces. And so, sometimes it's as simple as going, hey, let's work with a lead gen company and get you 10 leads right now. And then we're going to go do all this other stuff, because then you'll have positive cash flow.
Exactly. Couldn't agree more.
So, well, we are, gosh, I've been really, really chatty, because we're like 7 minutes over where I normally start wrapping the show up. So,
well, yeah, as you said, we got to nerd out today, which was a ton of fun.
I know it is. So I always like to wrap up my shows, though, with final thoughts, something that our audience can take away from the show and really apply to their business tomorrow. So I leave the floor to you for your final thoughts.
Awesome. Thank you. And thank you again for having me. It's been a lot of fun and a great experience. Listen, I'm going to circle back to what I already said, and because it's something that we preach so often, and that is audit yourself and try to do it through the lens, not as, hey, I own this business, but try to do it through the lens of your customer and how they see you, and a few things that I would throw out that you should look at, obviously your website, right? That's the impression that they get if they're visiting you virtually. So you want to make sure that it really, encapsulates who you are as a business. make sure you check out your own reviews and what people are saying about you. More importantly, make sure you're responding, both positive and the negative ones. Really, really important. But I think that notion of performing an audit on your business, understanding how you appear online is a great starting point. That definitely serves as a starting point that I think is really tangible for business owners and easy to do, right? Pour yourself a cup of coffee in the morning, start doing some searches. You'll see how you appear, and it'll start to give you like a tick list of what's really well and what things you should be patting yourself on the back for and what things need help.
I love that. And I'm going to add something to that really quick because it's something that I found to be really, really effective is send your website and your social media profiles to your family and ask them for totally honest feedback.
Love that.
Right? Because they might not be your exact perfect target audience for your sites, but at the end of the day, they're also going to be the least afraid to tell you what's up.
Yeah, I love that. That's great.
So that I use it. I send them to my wife, and I send sites that I launched to my wife and go, "What do you think about this?" She goes, "Ooh, I really like that. I don't like that at all." And I'm like,
right.
Cool. All right, we got to change that.
Love that.
So, well, awesome. It was so great to have you on the show. I cherish every moment I get to nerd out about marketing stuff and talk about it. But more so, I cherish having super, super knowledgeable guests like yourself on the show that can really give good, actionable insight. So thank you so much for your time today. Before we go, though, I definitely need to, people need to be able to find you. So where can people find you?
Excellent. Well, Adam, again, thank you for having me. It was a ton of fun also for me to geek out. I always love telling and talking about digital marketing, obviously. But folks can find us. Obviously, the name of us is Vivial. You can find us at vivial.net and, check us out on the website. Definitely, go to the Contact Us page if you'd like to connect. We're always happy even to just have a discussion and talk about digital marketing. I think you'll find that all 700 plus employees that work for us are about as passionate about digital marketing as I am. So
fantastic. And we will make sure we drop a link to that in the show notes as well. So you all have that easy click. As always, we appreciate everybody that was on the show today with us live, and replays are always available Thursday on YouTube and all the major podcast networks. We unfortunately had technical issues, so LinkedIn wasn't live today, but it'll be up by Thursday for everybody on LinkedIn to enjoy as well. So appreciate your time, appreciate everybody who joined us, and thank you so much. We will see you again next Tuesday for the Winning Tactics Podcast.
Well, that wraps up yet another episode of the Winning Tactics Podcast. You can find Adam on both the LinkedIn and Facebook platforms. And to support the show and ensure the success of the podcast, would you kindly consider visiting Patreon.com/Adam Sinkus? We greatly appreciate it. And until next time, from the Winning Tactics Podcast, remember, culture is how your team behaves when no one is looking. Take good care, and thanks for listening.